Okay, so you're Bigfoot and you're looking a little worse for wear. Where do you go get spruced up? Bigfoot's Barbershop. Where else? Duh. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Monstrous, the podcast. I know it's been a little bit since we had a show put out, but we're getting back in the swing of things a little bit here. It is my joy to bring you Mr. Brian Barber from Bigfoot's Barbershop, and we're going to sit here and we're going to talk Bigfoot just a little bit. So, Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Robert. How's things going for you?
Oh, everything's fantastic, buddy. So, whereabouts are you located at, Brian?
I live in Michigan, and if you ask anybody from the UP, I'm considered a patrol because I live below the bridge. I'm in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula, so
okay, so
I'm a troll.
Yeah. So you're under the bridge. Yeah, I get it. So, Bigfoot's Barbershop. So, okay, I have a million questions to ask, but I'm just basically going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to let you tell everybody about Brian Barber, how he got involved in this, and then I might throw in a few questions here in a little.
Brian Barber, the condensed version for Bigfoot would be my grandma owned property in Benzie County back in the 70s. And there was an area of the woods that anytime anybody walked back there, the hair would stand up on the back of your neck. And there were never any birds, never any squirrels or anything. It was just dead silent. And, the big thing was Bigfoot was in the woods. And so it was just an area that unless there were 3 or 4 people going, you just didn't go in. And what happened was how the Bigfoot thing got started there, that they decided that's what Bigfoot was one night while my grandfather was a dispatcher for Benzie County Sheriff's Department. He was working midnights. My grandma was home alone, and about 3 a.m, there was a heat lightning storm, which I don't know how many people know what that is. It's just where you're getting lightning and thunder, but you don't get any rain with it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the dog shot under the bed. You got a huge sheepdog and shoots under the bed, and my grandma's bed faced the bedroom window, and when a flash of lightning went off, there was a huge silhouette in the window. So she didn't know what it was. She grabs a shotgun, she calls my grandpa, and he brings himself and a few deputies to figure out what's going on. And as dawn breaks, there were 17-inch tracks coming from the woods leading up to the window and then back into the woods. And they did file a report on this, and then there were casts made, and I have an uncle who still has 1 or 2 of the casts. So that's how everybody figured out it was Bigfoot doing it. And then how I was able to visualize it was when In Search Of came on with Leonard Nimoy. I think it was in 1975 or 6. And, I was 5 or 6 years old. And I pointed to the TV and I said, "Hey, Dad, is that what's at Grandma's? Is that what's at Grandma's?" And he's like, "Well, not that one, but yeah, that's what's at Grandma's." Okay. Bigfoot. I didn't even know Bigfoot was fake until, I got into school. And then you find out, the Bigfoot's supposed to be fake, I should say, pardon me. And then I just grabbed every book I could find, and it stayed up on all the shows I could. And then 1987, it was July, and it was my first sighting of one. And it was just a couple miles down the road from my grandma's abandoned property at that point. and I was coming around. There was a big corner that went uphill. There was a guardrail, and as I was coming around the corner, we're talking somewhere between 10 and midnight because I love to take midnight drives in order to clear my head. And I had Boston playing in the background, you know, worrying about how tough the world was, being 16 with the end of the world. Girlfriend and I were having troubles, blah blah blah. And then I saw next to the guardrail, it looked like, I don't know why I thought it looked like a huge bag of garbage. And I'm like, what the heck? What kind of, several explicit words? Oh, a big bag of garbage there, you know? And then as I got closer, I realized it had hair. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a bear. That's a big bear. And it was hunched by the guardrail. And I thought, okay, I'm going to nudge him and see, get this bear to move, because it wasn't moving. So I'm slowing way down and way down. And then when I got within probably 10 feet, I decided to stop. And then as soon as I stopped the car, the bear stood up and squared off to my car. And this bear wasn't a bear. It was well over 8 feet. And I have a picture of me with the same car that I'll send you after the interview. But it was a 79 El Camino, and the shoulders on this supposed bear were as wide as the inside of fender to fender of my El Camino.
That is a massive Sasquatch you just rolled up on.
Yeah, and I had my high beams on, but because I was so close, the high beams only illuminated to just below the neck. I could see the chest and the frickin' arms on that thing, would be as big as my chest today. So they were twice my size at 16.
Mm-hmm.
It just stood there, and I could see the eye shine. And I'm looking at the eye shine, and I felt like it could see into the car. So, first mind is, okay, I've had enough, I'm going to honk the horn. And then as my hand got close to the horn, looking back, I don't know if it was mind speak or just my sixth sense, said, if you honk that horn, it's going to be a really bad night for you. So my hand's above the horn, like I'm getting ready for that. Remember that game show Pressure Lock to push the button, or Family Feud?
Right.
That's what it looked like. My hand's above that horn, sitting there, and it seemed like an hour. It was probably the whole encounter, somewhere between 5 and 8 seconds. But sit there, and then all of a sudden it literally just turned to the left and took one step over the guardrail. It didn't jump or anything. It literally just stepped over the guardrail and down the hill on it. And, I'm elated at that point. I'm like, holy cow, wait till I'm going to tell mom, I'm going to tell this person, I'm going to tell that person. And then it hit me, it's 1987. And it's like, I can't tell anybody. They're going to think I'm a freaking nut job, And because I had paranormal experiences earlier, and I got teased relentlessly for that. So it was like, no, I'm not telling anybody this. And then I kept it quiet for, well over 30 years. But I still kept on everything I could, any book I could find. Monster Class, I watched them repeatedly, read them over and over. So, yeah, that's what got me interested.
So when did you start actually hitting the field as far as doing research?
2019.
Okay.
And
what brought that about?
What brought that about was, it was during all the issues the world was having. And I thought, what, one more thing I would like to do is confirm what I saw when I was 16. But it's like, people go their whole lives without even seeing a footprint. So what are the odds I'm actually going to get to see two? And, I got on the forums, got into some Facebook groups, and made a friend, and he used to live in Benson County. And he's like, well, from what I'm hearing now, go to this place. This is the hot spot. I'm like, all right. And so I was on my way there. I stopped and to say hi to my mom, who worked at a grocery store, and ran into a friend of mine. And she's like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, dumb as it sounds, I'm going to look for Bigfoot. She laughed. She was, moron, they don't exist. I'm like, well, let's go catch up. Just go for a walk with me. And so we did. And we get to this place, and it's a seasonal road, but in 2019, the winter wasn't that bad here. So I got back there with my four-wheel drive, no problem. There was probably 2 inches of snow on the ground at the time. And we started walking down the hill, and I'm pretty shy, so I don't like to make a lot of noise. So instead of doing calls or knocks, what I would do is I clap twice. And so as we started down the trail, we'd stop, I'd clap twice, nothing. Keep on walking, clap twice, nothing. And this goes on for, a mile to the end of the trail down at the bottom of the hill. And I'm sorry, there's still more trail, but I looked up to the right, and it looked like it was a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. And I thought, man, that would be a great spot for a Squatch to sit and just see. I want to see what a Squatch sees. So that was my attitude, was I was going to walk up to the top and take a look around, take a few pictures, and then I told my friend I'm going up there, and I took 2 steps. And on the second step, it sounded like 2 catcher's mitts clapping. I mean, twice, faster than I could and louder. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. I looked at my friend. She's got tears in her eyes. And I said, it takes hands to clap, right? And she's like, yep, I am ready to go home. I'm like, okay, I'm with you. And then it got a little hairy, because as we were walking out, it was like they knew they won. They were driving us out, because then we started hearing sticks breaking and heavy footfall to the left, for about quarter of the way up. And then once we hit about quarter of the way up, then we started hearing stuff on the right. So now we're hearing things on the left and the right. And we got almost a little over halfway, and I had parked next to a metal cattle gate. And all of a sudden, something is shaking the living crap out of that metal cattle gate. And this is down a 2-track road where there's nobody back there. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, holy crap, we're done, And we keep walking, and I heard what sounded a little closer, so I turned around and looked, and just saw a large black figure jump behind the tree. So I told my friend, no, you need to go in front, and we need to pick up the pace a little bit. And we get back to the truck, and sure enough, there were prints. I mean, I'll admit, I was scared out of my mind at that point. So I did not bother having a tape measure or anything with me, but I can tell you there were big tracks around my truck and by that gate that had gotten shaken, and we left.
I don't blame you, especially when it's your first go at that.
Yeah, I was totally expecting to get skunked. I mean, like I said, people get, decades and lifetimes without any of that. And because of a friend's point of view, I go and on the first try get, run out of the woods. So it took me probably 6 months to get the courage to start going back.
Okay. Did you go back to the same spot?
Yeah. So I started hitting that spot, and, still talking to a lot of people and trying to find out more. Started learning about the whole tree structure thing and what to look for when you're walking through the woods. Things that you might be oblivious to unless you're really looking. Things like, because of where it's at, there's a bunch of windfall, but all of a sudden you see 1 or 2 trees that go against the windfall that form a teepee. It's like, there's something odd about that. And then we started, finding prints. And, then this is where, things got interesting. Was we started leaving little gifts here and there, trying different things. Like at one point, I bought a little bag of Army Men and, tossed them around as I went, and they got picked up and put back in a pile.
Oh, wow.
And then we started leaving, God, I'm trying to think of everything I left. Certain, like, little trinkets of food, like honey buns or something like that, which is really a funny story, because I put the honey bun out, still in the wrapper, and nothing touched it. Not the ants, not the deer, trash pandas, possums, nothing touched it. And I thought, what the heck? I left it there like 3 days. And then so I opened it and left it and came back after a week and it still was untouched. It's like, what the heck? Does nature know there's some poison in this or something? And maybe I shouldn't be eating it either.
Right.
So, and then we eventually got to the point where I don't remember whose picture it was, but I remember seeing a picture of somebody who had a jar of peanut butter with what looked like a thumbprint in it. I thought, you know what? Let's try that. See what happens. So I would go out. It was taking the little jars of peanut butter and opening the lid so they could smell it, but then I'd screw the top back on, and we leave them in various places. And then, of course, you had your animal activity where you'd find half-eaten jar, literally the half the jar is gone, and a squirrel or raccoon prints in it or not. But then you would find the occasional one that was just lit clean. And it was like, well, what the heck? There's not a bite mark on it, anything like that. And then at one point, this was in the first couple of months of putting peanut butter out, I happened to see a squirrel take off with one of the peanut butter jars. So, okay, well, maybe that's where some of them are going. So then I started using a 4-pounder. I said, there, take that, you little prick. And, but they would come up missing. And we would find them. It was almost like a pattern, too. You would find somewhere close to the spot I was putting it at, you would find the wrapper. And then you follow the wrapper trail, and then you look around and probably find the lid, and then look around a little farther, and then you would find the jar. And a lot of the ones with trash panda eating it, but the majority of the 4-pounders were lit clean. And so we started putting them in more places, and there were 6 different spots I would put them in. And so I was going through about 9 jars of peanut butter a week. So I was going out there 3 times a week and take 3 with me every time. Because I'd look at one spot once, one spot the next, because they were a little bit of apart. It was too much in one day for me to cover. And I started doing things. And also there was some obvious activity too, because we would find, next to this one tree I was putting it in, I would bungee cord the peanut butter to the tree with colored popsicle sticks under it, because then I would go back and the bungee cord would be undone but laying on the tree, and all the colored popsicles would be laying on the ground sorted out by color. And there would be 17-inch or 23-inch tracks next to it, so it was pretty easy to tell it wasn't a raccoon that played with that. And,
right.
And the ground is real hard out there. A lot of deadfall too, so tracks are few. And you see more imprints than you see actual tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, because of my circumstances, I'm a caregiver 19 hours a day for my girlfriend. So my watching time is limited to 4 or 5 hours every 3 or 4 days.
Right.
It's an hour there and an hour back, but every once in a while I can get out there, a little later. And this time was about 9 o'clock at night. And I came across put peanut butter out and was walking, came across this beautiful 17-inch track. And I thought, perfect, I'm casting this. This is beautiful. And so I mix it up and put it in, and I'd never practiced before, and so it just soaked into the ground and ruined the track. I was bummed. So I was sitting there cussing myself out because I see this thing just, it soaks into the ground. And then I hear crash behind me, and I go back and look, and the peanut butter had been taken, and there was a 23-inch track next to the peanut butter that was gone.
Wow.
So, and then there was a time where, walking down the path, every once in a while you see something that catches your eye, you're not quite sure what it is, and something it looked like, if you can imagine, when the termites get a tree and it turns it kind of the sun turns it a reddish brown.
Yep.
So I see this reddish brown stump up on the hill, and I don't know why, but it keeps grabbing my eye. I thought, what the heck is that? And then as soon as I pull my phone out, the stump stands up and then runs up and jumps off the bluff. So, you just shake your head and go on, because, and people wonder why you don't get pictures. It's like, you get a few seconds, and that's it. It's not even enough time to open your camera.
Right.
And so this goes on for, it was about 3 years where I'm putting these peanut butter jars out, finding tracks, getting some okay pics. And then one night, this was probably the most scared I've been, was a friend of mine was passing away from cancer. She was stage 4 lung cancer and wanted to go for a ride. So I arranged for a caregiver, had one here, and we went out there about 10 o'clock. And I said, well, let's go check that spot. And she knew I was going out there, but this was another one who was a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, all right, I like that area. We can take a nice walk. And as we pull up, I can see where deer tracks came down, and then the road was a sheet of ice. And then you can see the deer tracks go up. And as I'm looking at the deer tracks, I see 2 huge footprints, 5-6 feet apart. And they had gone up the hill in 2 steps. And I said, oh, I know what that is. And she's like, all right, let's look. So I shut the lights off on my truck. And I said, all right, well, let's do this right. Let's go in the dark. And she goes, good, whatever. And so we're walking up the hill, and you can hear, like little sticks breaking and stuff. Didn't think anything of it. And just as we get to the top of the hill, we hear a crack. Big tree break. And she's like, what the fudge was that? I'm like, I don't know. It didn't sound good. And she's like, well, turn the light on. So I turned the flashlight on, and right at the edge of the beam, there's an 8-footer, reddish orange. As soon as that light hits it, its right arm comes up and covers its face, because it was a bright flashlight, almost 2,500 looms, and hit it right in the face. And I turn around to her, put my keys in her hand, and as I'm doing that, this thing roars. It wasn't a grunt, a growl. It was just, angry being. And it was so loud and powerful that it like vibrated through you. And I put my keys in her hand and I said, go. If I'm not 30 seconds behind you, you go. And so we start back down the hill, and whatever it is was, I'll say, following us out. It wasn't trying to chase us, or it would have caught us, but it was making it very well known it was behind us, because it was thud, crack, and crack. And she's not moving fast enough for me, so I'm 6 foot and 250. I'm picking her up, pushing her through the snow. It's like, let's go, and get to the truck, open the door. She gets in, and as soon as I push her in, my feet hit the ice and I fall underneath my truck, because it was a 1-ton Dodge. It was jacked up a little bit. So now I'm under the truck. I'm trying to get out on a glare ice road, and all of a sudden my truck starts. So right through my head, I'm like, I'm either going to get squished or I'm going to get my butt kicked by Bigfoot. I don't know what's happening here. Luckily, I get in the truck. She jumps over, and I don't even bother going up the hill. I'm back right down the hill. We start to leave, and then I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a drink. And she goes, well, we got to stop at Shell first. I'm like, no, I want to go to the bar. I'm going to have a drink. And she's like, no, because when it roared, what had happened was she had wet her pants. And so she wanted to she had snow pants on. So we wound up going to Shell, took her pants off, put them in a bag. threw them in the back of the truck, and we went and had a couple of drinks with her in her snow pants. And I said, hey, don't feel bad, because if I hadn't used that tree down the road, I would have done the same thing. And then we went back the next day, and I'm glad I did this, because then I got pictures of the tracks the night of, and then the next day, and then I tried to recreate those steps, and those steps were pristine. There wasn't any kick snow, there wasn't drag marks in between. And when I tried to recreate those tracks, I'm pushing the snow up to my knees and just plowing through it. And it took me 11 steps to equal those two. And like I said, I'm 6 foot. So it took me 11 steps. I'm plowing snow. It was a pain in the butt. And then when I took a picture of the track during the daylight, they're 23-inch. And the cool part is a lot of people don't know that when Bigfoot walks, because of their anatomy, the heels kick out and rotate. And in these tracks, you can see right at the top of the snow that rotation. There's like a knuckle mark almost where it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a slam dunk case. And then I sent those pictures from the night out to a few friends, and one of them sent them to Bob Daigle. I don't know if you know who Bob Daigle is.
I've heard the name before.
Used to do a lot of satellite research for the government, analyze, for like military installations and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that, I went, oh man, I am going to get blasted over this. Not going to have anything in there, just worried sick I'm going to get roasted for putting them out there. And then Bob Daigle actually texted me back, and he says, well, you definitely got two on the right, and looks like one on the left. And then he, lightened the photos for me. And sure enough, we walked right in between three of them. There were two on the right, one on the left. Could have snatched us up just like that. So, and then it wasn't long after that where I got sick with everything that was going on. So I missed about 4 weeks out there, where I wasn't out in the woods at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was finally able to return, I started putting stuff out, and next thing I know, my friend who goes with me occasionally, the DNR show up at our house, and they go, is Brian here? And she's like, no. And he goes, okay, well, here's his card. Please give it to Brian because we want to talk to him. And the only reason why they didn't, weren't able to find me right away was because of the fact my license plate was in my back window of the truck, because I had a hitch on it, and the window was tinted. So I think they must have had a camera looking for license plates or something. They got with me that day. And so I talked to the DNR, and what was really odd is, we've got local offices right here, and within 12 miles of where that place is, there's a DNR office with officers, and yet they had somebody from Cadillac come talk to me, which is an hour and 20 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're on the phone, I'm nervous, there's no doubt, because I don't know what I'm going to get in trouble for. And so she starts talking to me, and well, we know we're out there feeding with the peanut butter, and it's getting to be a conflict between the wildlife, and there's 2 houses out there and one place that somebody owns and just brings their camper up, but there's 2 year-round houses there on the other side of the road from this conservancy. And she says, the wildlife is starting to harass the people, and the bears are coming out of hibernation, and the bears are becoming a problem. And I'm like, the bears? And she's like, yeah, it's the bears. And I says, people got their bird feeders out there and everything, and so I don't get it. And she says, well, the bears are becoming a problem, and you're littering because you're leaving this out there. And I said, is this being recorded? And she's like, no, I didn't feel a need for that. And I said, okay. I said, well, I've been out there 3 years, and I've never seen a bear track. I've never seen a bear scratch, scat, or a bear. And bears don't leave 23-inch prints, knock when I clap, and throw logs at my truck. And she went, excuse me? That's all I'm saying right there. I said, if we're going to go with bears, let's go with bears. I tried my hardest to get her to say Bigfoot. She wouldn't budge. But so she continues, and then she goes, well, I want to see your trail cams. Like, well, I don't put trail cams out because I worry about people stealing them, so I don't put them out. She goes, well, do you have anything on your phone? I had nothing but blob stuff and nothing you get to see without a piece of paper. And she's like, okay, well, they don't want a big incident with this. So, as long as you go out there and clean up your peanut butter and you quit feeding them, everything will be okay. So I'm like, okay, fine. And the next week I was out there, cleaning stuff up, and the people from the second house, who I've talked to on occasion, they knew exactly what I was doing. As long as I stayed off their property, they were fine with it. And they came out to me and said, well, we're sorry we had to call the DNR. And I'm like, why did you call the DNR? I said, you had my number. I don't know what the problem was. Why didn't you call me? And she said, well, you missed a few weeks, and then it was about 2 weeks that you were gone, and all of a sudden our motion lights were going off. And when we watched the footage, it was peanut butter jars bouncing through our yard, setting the motion lights off. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, nope. And she brought out a bag, and I think it was 9 or 10 empty jars.
Oh, wow.
So, and then a week passed after that. And this is where I feel horrible, because what happened was the second people didn't agree with what I was doing. And we had several very heated discussions. And what happened was, about 3 weeks into it, I think she was like 5 at the time, woke up screaming. Dad comes in, and there's a Bigfoot window peeping in the second story window. So, and the activity got so bad, it never did let up, even after I quit feeding them, that they sold their house. So that was why the DNR got called, and that's why I don't feed them anymore. And to be honest, after I quit feeding them, I didn't know how things were going to go, because you hear stories of what happens when people quit feeding or doing the things they do. And so the first time I went out, I do talk to them, and I verbalized, I'm sorry, I can't do this. It is what it is. I wasn't worried the first time, because I thought for sure they'd think I was putting peanut butter out. But then the second time when I went out, I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to get my ass kicked. They didn't leave anything. They're going to want to know where it is, but it didn't happen. And still got a couple replies, even when I didn't, have the peanut butter. I would, clap, and then you get a knock. So it was like, okay. And so then, instead of doing food, I started experimenting with like other little things to gift with. Right now I'm using anything blue, like blue stones, even painted blue stones. For some reason, I put in 3 of the spots some crystals, red, black, white, and blue. And every time it's the blue one that gets moved. Moved or gone, usually gone. So, and now, I'm still working that place. not as much this year because haven't been feeling good, but it's kind of come full circle because now I'm in a place that it's always been my dream to go back to my grandma's property. And I got in touch with somebody who'd been trying to get in touch with me that owns property that butts right up to it. And talking to them, and they've lived there 9 years and have had all kinds of activity happening, tree breaks and stuff. And finally, they agreed to let me come out as long as I keep things, under wraps as far as where it's at.
Right.
And the amount of evidence with tree structures and things back there is unreal. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store. You found where, one cut log had gotten jammed in between two trees and it had been there long enough to grow around the cut log.
Mm-hmm.
And a matter of fact, the owner got it, it's been good because they haven't bothered the house. The only thing that has been happening with the house is over the last couple of weeks, the dog has refused to go out back at night. And I went and put a recorder out Thursday, went back yesterday to get it and looked at it, and it had gotten turned off. I thought, God, I even turned it on, and I turned it back on, and sure enough, there were 2 hours. And I thought, well, heck, battery's still almost full. I'm going to leave it out here tonight. So I left it yesterday, and today the owner wanted to go out with me. So I'm like, yeah, great. I want to get that recorder, and I want to hear, what turned it off. Because it's a switch. It's not just a button to push. It's a switch.
Right.
And we go and look, and I'm like, it's gone. And he goes, what? I said, the recorder's gone. And he goes, where was it? And I showed him, and I had Gorilla Tape, ironically, the recorder to the tree and wrapped the tape around the tree. It wasn't just a piece of tape sticking on each side. It was wrapped twice with the Gorilla Tape, and I had a plastic bag on it. The recorder zipped in the Ziploc bag with just the microphone hanging out. So that way, if it rained, it wasn't going to get ruined. And plastic bag is still there, recorder's gone. I am looking and looking around that tree because I thought, okay, it's a raccoon or a squirrel. I've had recorders come up missing before. And I go, God, I never hear anything out here. I don't know what would have taken it. And he goes, Bigfoot took it. I said, what makes you jump to that conclusion? And he says, the big frickin' prints that you're stomping around on. And I looked down, and sure enough, there's 17-inch imprints coming from one side of the woods across the path right up to the tree and keeps going on its way in one direction. I was like, son of a gun. I knew I should have taken it home and listened to see what turned it off, but I had a full battery. I thought, I'll get some more and see what happens. Now I lost $100 recorder. There's, in a way, it's kind of fun because the owner is just giddy because of the fact that there were prints leading right up to the tree.
What's funny is I would almost bet money that recorder will turn back up again at some point.
I've had it happen one time. This will be my 4th recorder that got ripped off. I've had 3 other ones disappear, but one did turn back up.
Mm-hmm.
Really hoping that one turns up. Because the one that turned up last time was one that I was taping it to the tree, and all of a sudden the rocks started flying. And this is 11 o'clock at night. And you can hear on the recorder me cussing, oh, F, that was a rock. And then you can hear the person with me, oh, F, there's another one, And so we leave, and about 2 a.m, you start hearing all kinds of banging, tree knocks and banging, and you can even hear, it was about 3:30 in the morning, if I remember right on the recorder, like a little bit of the samurai chatter. You can hear just a little, whoop, 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 whoop. And then you hear, like, I don't know if he hit his thumb with the freaking tree or what, but then you hear rah, 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 and then it goes quiet. And then about it was 4 or 4:30, you can hear something walking toward the recorder, and then you hear something scratch on the recorder, and then you hear it walk off. And when I got out there the next day, the recorder was gone, but next to the tree I had a 24-inch wiper blade in my truck that I was going to put on, so I used that for size. And when there were 24, had to be 22, 23 because it was a little shorter than the wiper, and leading away from the tree. So it came down one side of the road, went up, grabbed the recorder, and gone. And that recorder turned up. It was probably a month later. At that same tree.
Yeah.
So that was why I was able to get everything off it.
Yeah, I'll almost bet that recorder shows back up, just like you just said, at that same tree. It'll be like it fell on the ground right there, but it didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like he was asking me. He's like, "Well, why would they take it?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, think about it. In a way," he says, "I like." He was like, "I leave stuff out here all the time." I said, "Yeah, it's your property. You've been here 9 years with them. They've got some stranger walking in and leaving crap in their living room. They want to know what's going on." That's how I do it. It's like, if I literally walked into your house, you don't know me, and I put something in your house and walk out, you're going to wonder what it is. Go over there and look at it.
That's absolutely right. So, yeah, it's interesting that you use the peanut butter, and I was back here in the background kind of laughing to myself because everything that you said about the jars of peanut butter is exactly what we run into. I'm in Arkansas. I'm in eastern Arkansas, and we do a lot of our investigations up in southeast Missouri. So what we do is we do pretty much the same thing that you're doing, and I usually open up the jar of peanut butter, take the seal off, put the lid back on, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take one of those straps, like not a bungee cord, but one of the straps like you use for tying stuff down to your truck, and I'll strap that to the tree. And I do use cameras, so what we'll do is we'll put a game camera back a ways, and then we'll put that strap to the tree, and more often than not, we'll have that jar of peanut butter disappear for a while, turn back up, and it'll be, like you said, completely emptied out. No chew marks, no nothing. The lid has clearly been twisted off of it. You can tell the ones where the animals got into it because it may be chewed even from the bottom. And usually it's completely chewed up, and we've even had on camera where you can see in one picture the peanut butter is there, and less than 30 seconds that jar of peanut butter is gone.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's really funny is after about a month of cracking the seals on them, I quit cracking the seal. And most of the time you'll find that seal peeled off in a perfect circle.
Yep.
I mean, perfectly. It's like, I can't do it. And the one I strapped it to the tree, and I still got it laying around here somewhere. I got dozens of those things. But the one I saved specifically was because where I put it was probably 3 feet off the ground, and it was under popsicle sticks and bungee cord to the tree. It was like kind of, the Native American trees where they tied it down and then they turn around and branch out and grow back up. That was one of them. So I put it in the crotch of that tree. And when I went back 3 days later, it's probably around 8 or 9 feet up, jammed in the tree. Crap. Luckily I was able to climb partway up and knock it down with a stick.
Yeah.
And what they had done was not only did they unscrew the lid, but they peeled the tinfoil in a perfect piece and then rolled it up real tight, almost like something Cheech and Chong would be proud of. Stuck it back in the jar and screwed the lid on, and then stuck it 8 foot in the air.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I even quit cracking the seals on it. I thought, all right, we'll sell a smart jar. And they just peel the seal right off. no problem.
What got me, and I thought was pretty funny, is I'd go to the tree that was across from the game camera where the peanut butter jar had been, and not only was the peanut butter jar gone, but the strap had been tightened down all the way to the tree.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they got a sense of humor.
yeah. I think they actually do. And we've been out there, and it's me and my buddy Richard. It's actually his family's land that we go out on. It's a hunting cabin. And generally, we have found that they're most active in the wintertime whenever the family shows up to do their annual deer hunt. And it's kind of hit or miss with some of that stuff. But we go out there, and I'm one of those. I don't do the yells. I definitely don't do the wood knocks and stuff like that. Because I've always thought, well, you don't know what you're saying. You don't speak their language. You don't know what they're saying. But so we had gotten there one morning, and it was very clear that two juveniles had been there just before we got there. Matter of fact, they probably heard our vehicles and had headed off into the woods right as we pulled up. So we get our gear together and we're headed out into the woods. We're going down the hill. And I looked at Richard and I said, I know I preach this all the time. I said, but I've got to do a yell. And he's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I've just had this overwhelming urge to do one. He's like, all right. So I do the best, Bigfoot call I can possibly do at the time. And it's not, 5 seconds. We get an answer from off the far left. And he looks at me and I look at him and he's like, that's the one we've been hearing. And I said, well, I'm going to answer him back. So I answered him back and he didn't go off, but one way off to our right went off. And it was funny because Richard turned around, looked at me. He goes, I don't know that one. That made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I think you pissed it off.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, you don't know, and from what people are telling me, once I explained what I did, I had people tell me, "Well, yeah, that was dumb." Was I call blasted the Ohio Hall, from Matt Moneymaker?
Right.
I did it 3 times, and all of a sudden I hear something crashing through the woods and hits the back of my truck, and I thought the back window exploded. I am like, what the? And turn my flashlight on and look, and it was a huge, I don't want to call it, when people say a log, they think of a huge tree, but it was a branch that was probably my waist high, so 33 inches by 4 or 5 inches, that had come trees across the parking lot and hit the back of my truck.
Right.
So I never did another call after that. And that picture I sent you with the one behind the tree, that came from coming across juveniles. I did not think we were getting out of there that day.
Oh, yeah.
We went to a new place because we had heard a story on the Manistee River, and it was the Tippy Dam. And these guys were out night fishing, and in the middle of the river there's an island, a small island. And they were close to that fishing at night, and then they hear, a fish jump, didn't think anything of it. Time passes, another fish jumps closer to the boat, don't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden the fish jumps in the boat. Well, it's a big basketball-sized rock. And then they hear something scream from the shore, so they don't bother looking, they just leave. And so we went out, heard about it, and went out, I think it was 3 days later. And when my buddy and I get there, first thing he does in Ohio Hall, I wanted to kick him right in the jewels. No, why? Why did you have to do that? And because it wasn't 5 seconds later, we got a crack from behind the dam. And so we start walking, and we're seeing evidence right off the bat. I mean, X's you wouldn't believe. It was more like what you'd see in the Pacific Northwest, the size of these X's.
Right.
Trees. And it's like, holy crap, whatever's out here, they're big. And we're walking, and we look down, and in this valley, I had never seen anything like it. Haven't seen anything since. And this was April of 2024. And you know how log cabins look with the logs and they're stacked?
Mm-hmm.
Well, these were stacked. They had to be 20 feet long plus, and they were stacked 3 high, but they were stacked in a triangle shape with one end open. So it looked like a mini corral or something.
Right.
And so I'm taking pictures of it, and my friend does a knock, and then you hear a knock from down where that pen is. And he does another knock, and I'm like, okay, it's rhythmic, it's a woodpecker. Well, then all of a sudden, whatever it was started knocking really fast, and you hear a whistle from one direction, a whoop from the middle, and then it was a huge knock or push from the left. And I'm like, we're standing looking at you, and then he looks down, he goes, "Oh crap, we're in trouble. There's babies." I said, "What do you mean we're in trouble? You did the owl." And he's looking, he's like, "No, I'm telling you, there's babies down there. I just saw 2 flashes of brown. Those are babies, and they're panicking." He's like, "We need to go." And so we start walking, and we didn't get 3 steps and turned around after we heard a huge whistle, sounded like a steam whistle. And I saw 3 adults. There was that big brown one. There was a black one who wasn't quite as tall, but bulkier.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a short brownish one that was off to the right of the big brown one. And I'm like, holy crap. And, he starts snapping pictures and I start snapping pictures. And I'll realize that they're getting closer. And so I go, yeah, we need to go. We're in trouble at this point. And as soon as we start walking, we said, well, we're apologizing. We're sorry. We didn't know there were babies. We don't mean them any harm. We are so sorry. We are leaving. And they went from 100 yards to 50 yards within 3 or 4 of our steps. And then they got within 30 yards. And they're grunting and they're not happy. They're breaking sticks. Honestly, did not think we were going to make it back to the cars. I even, Elaine still got my text saying, hey, if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, this is where I'm at. She's never seen me do that before. I've never done that in many how times I've gone out, how late I've been. I got lost yesterday. I don't know what, completely lost. I didn't even text her because I wasn't worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that day I was worried I wasn't going to make it. Somebody needed to take care of her. And we get back to the car. I'm like, phew. And first thing he wants to do is call his friend who's got one of I think it's the Michigan Bigfoot data gumshoe guy, Val Solala.
Right.
So he's on the phone with Val. And he's talking, and I'm looking, I'm like, I keep seeing flashes. It's like, holy crap, they followed us all the way out. They're right at the tree line. They're still here. And he's on the phone, and all of a sudden they start breaking more sticks. They're knocking, they're whistling. And Val's on the phone, and Lance is explaining this to him, and Val's like, what's that whistle? He goes, that's him. He goes, you guys are still there? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, you guys are idiots. Get out of there. And so we get in the car. He gets in his truck, and I get in the car, and we leave. But on the way out, we were looking for signs of Bigfoot all the way in. And as we're leaving, like I said, we looked for signs all the way in and didn't really see much on the way in. But on the way out, right in plain view, I'll just send you the picture so you can see what I'm talking about too. There was probably a 5-foot log, and this was more log, up in the tree, probably 12 feet. And you know what they call the hangers when they're straight across?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a hanger that was there. That wasn't there on the way in.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, holy crap. So I take a few pictures of that, and I show, my friend Lance, and talk to a couple other people. And I said, what's that mean? And one of them, who's, been doing this for 40 some years, he goes, that's a warning. I said, what do you mean? He goes, that's a warning that this is how big we are. We know how big you are. And if you come back, that's going to be you in the tree.
Yeah.
Okay. well, I guess I ain't coming back here. So, and haven't been back because I don't want to push my luck. Not when I know there's a family and I know what I would do with my kids. So,
Right, right. And whenever I was talking about that yell that I did, and where Richard was kind of like, I think you pissed it off. I did tell him, I said, I didn't get that feeling. I didn't get that scared feeling or whatever. Because my intent was not to challenge them. My intent was to say, hey, we're in the woods, and we're kind of these goofy guys who are walking around looking at the ground, looking for where you walked or whatever. And we don't mean you any harm. And yeah, we're packing pistols and stuff like that, but we weren't out there to hurt anybody. So I wanted them to kind of know our intent. Have you ever noticed that there's kind of a paranormal aspect to Bigfoot? Kind of like, if you walk out there with a specific intent, that that's kind of they kind of catch on to that.
yeah, absolutely. One instance comes right to mind, one of the most memorable moments of my life because of the fact that I lost a very dear friend. Um, you might have to edit me crying out of this anyway. And all I wanted was peace. And when I find my peace is in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been a personal trainer since 1986. I'm around people all day. I'm around a lot of noise all day. And being a caregiver 19 hours a day, I don't get a lot of peace. So when I can get out in the woods, that's my peace. And with the death of my friend, I needed to clear my head. And so I went out, and as weird as this sound, I was sitting there playing Evanescence, My Immortal, down in the woods, in a spot in the leaves, and I'm crying. And next thing I hear is this long, just almost like painful howl. I went, oh, that was kind of cool. And then it did it again as I'm crying. And then it does it a third time. I'm like, holy crap, they're picking up on this.
Yeah.
And then after I was there about 2 hours, it happened 3 times. That was the only quote unquote activity. And I leave and I get home, and I had a dog clicker that I would use to try to get, like responses from them. And it was gone. I'm like, oh man, lost it in the woods. Crap. And when I went back the next time, I mean, I was a mile down the road. I know the trail is exactly 1 mile. And I was at the end of it and inside the woods. And when I got back, the next time, that dog clicker was tied to the canopy.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I think they can definitely pick up on intent. And even though I have no intention of ever harming one, I'm not even in self-defense. I know I sound like a Pop-Tart for saying that, but because when I do carry in my spot that I am now, I don't get anything, nothing.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not carrying, then I have better. I don't want to say every time, but I have better chances.
Well, I'm one of those weirdos who talks to the woods whenever you're out there, or whatever. I'll walk out there and I'll be like, okay, yes, I'm carrying, a pistol, but it's not for you. It's not, it's for like snakes or, a God forbid a bear or something, just something stupid. It makes me feel better. I'm not out there to try and muscle my way in or anything like that. And yeah, there's times I've gone out there without the guns or whatever, and but I'm like I said, I'm always one of those who's like, okay, well, if you want to show me that you're here, that would be really cool. If you don't, that's also really cool. And I'll kind of think of something usually that if they're listening, I'm going to tell them, it'd be kind of cool if I could find a blue feather or find a red feather or maybe a deer skull or something like that, or just one antler, and a lot of times I'll find that one thing if I'm paying attention. Now, if I'm not paying attention, I won't find it, but a lot of times I'll come across that, and that'll let me know that they're listening.
I never thought about trying that, about asking for something specific.
The thing is, if you do it and you find it, don't leave it.
Oh,
Pick,
right.
pick it up and take it with you because you asked for it.
Yeah, I know they listen because of the fact, there was a time I wasn't even at it's the same area I go to Bigfoot, but I wasn't Bigfooting, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
walked. I wanted to, clear my head. Uh, Even had my headphones on. I wasn't listening for anything. And as I'm walking and just kind of bobbing my head, and I have noise canceling headphones on, look down and see a print, and next thing you know, bang! I get hit right in the freaking earmuff with a rock.
Mm.
I'm like, what the? I take my headphones off, and I'm instantly. I didn't. It was one of those days. Like I said, I needed to clear my head, so I was hot. And I fired up. Hey, you dumb mother! It wasn't very nice. And then I got rock right in the back. That one
Ah,
hurt. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm out of here.
I,
So it was
I
like,
think they're
they
in.
listen and they know intent. I always try to go out there with a good attitude.
Yeah.
If I've had a bad attitude, and I'll admit, there's when I go out at night, it does make me a little more nervous because I know that's their time. And due to the first time I use the thermal, uh, I do get nervous. So sometimes I'll have one shot when I'm there. Because the first time I used the thermal, you'll find this pretty funny. It was one of those FLIRs that attached to your iPhone.
That's what I have too.
So I'm using that, and and of course, the first time I use it is out in the field. I don't practice with it. So I got, white for hot, and I got, a friend with me, and we're sitting there looking, down the road that we know they travel, and it was like, God, it must be cold. There's those two gaps in between the trees. It's really dark, and we're sitting there talking because I don't believe in sitting there and being quiet. And it's like
Right.
you're not going to sneak up on them, so just talk. They might be curious about what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking, and my friend glances over and goes, "Why is the gap getting bigger?" And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "The gap in the trees is getting bigger." And I'm like, "No, it's not. You, it's what I try to blow it off as pixelation because I shake." And then she says again, "No, it's getting bigger." And I look, I went, "Well, son of a gun, it is getting bigger." And that's when we hear it crack behind us. So I swing around with the thermal. As I pass my truck, my engine's black. I'm like, oh, I got this on black for hot. So there were two of them coming up the hill that I thought were coal. So once they figured out we knew they were there, then they got loud.
Right.
And it was like, okay, we need to go. So I don't think they would have hurt us, but at the same time, it was, when you get in your truck and they went from 50 yards to where you step on your brake light to go to drive and
Mm-hmm.
two dark shadows behind you. It's like you're not really sure what the intentions are at that point when there's two of them.
Right. Right.
So,
What
and I
about?
think, I've been blessed. I'll admit, I've been extremely blessed because not only do I have somebody who goes out there with me that can verify a lot of the stuff,
Uh huh.
and one guy that had experiences when he was a kid. He's got his own YouTube channel and stuff. He came up and did a video on me and actually went in the field with me. As soon as we got there, as soon as we shut the door, there's a roar. And he looked at me and goes, "What the F was that?" I said, "You tell me, you're the expert. I'm just an enthusiast." you know? And we're walking, and you can hear stuff walking around. Not sure what it is because it's dark, but we both got thermals. And we get to the end of the track, and he's got a picture clear as day where you can see peeking out from the tree the head, the chest, the arm, and the left leg, all defined, bright red, muscle separation. And he he kept me calm. He's like, dude, they're not going to do nothing. So yeah, we got a picture and stuff. This is great. This is great for the video. So now we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And so we leave, and it parallels us. So he's got a bunch of footage of it up on the hill. I felt like finding Bigfoot. There's something on the hill. And, it followed us out probably a quarter mile and then got bored and off it went. So there's other people who can verify what I got going on out there. So
Right, right. What about things like orbs? Have you ever experienced any of those in the forest at night?
I have not.
I have. I have, and it's
Hearing
really
about
weird.
it, like it's a very common thing, but like I said, I don't get to go out at night very often.
Mm-hmm.
I can probably count the times I've been out at night on both hands and still have fingers left. So the odds of me actually being able to see an orb, um, I mean, I think I've only been out there after dark 4 or 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The other thing that you'll experience, I mean, it's kind of weird, and I'm just saying this from being out in the field at night and seeing these, and we've even seen it during the daytime, and it's a flash, almost like the flash of a camera going off.
I've seen that show up in the Patterson Gimlin film where
Mm-hmm.
MK Davis does a breakdown on that.
Yeah,
So
that's
once
a
I get
really
my eyes fixed, I'll see more stuff.
yeah, that's a really weird thing because you're like, what is causing that? And we can't really come up with any conclusive answer as to what's causing that. But there's a lot of strange things that happen around, the whole Bigfoot thing. What do you think would probably be the weirdest thing that you experienced seeing, hearing when you're out there?
The most odd thing is for me, it's happened three three times I can think of where I've literally been in these same woods, traveled these, 'cause I try to be consistent, travel these same paths hundreds of times over the last 4 years. And yet there are times where I go out and then somehow I get turned around.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out there. It's like I lose all sense of direction, lose all sense of time. I have to turn around and use my GPS just to get to the closest road. Even though I've been out there 100, but it's only happened a handful of times. Yesterday, getting lost was just because I didn't know the woods and I just lost track. But the times I've been out there were times I've been out there. First time I've been out there dozens of times, knew the place like the back of my hand.
Right.
If I go here, I'm gonna end up here. If I go there, I'm gonna end up there. And yet somehow I get, and there's a feeling that goes with it, like of confusion.
Yep.
So, that's probably the weirdest thing I've had happen. There's odd things that happen. Like when you hear a mimic, you hear an owl go off, but darn well that owl would have to be 1,000 pounds.
I was going to say is what we call the 600-pound owl. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've had that up at the cabin. We had that one night where we had heard Richard had heard a scream, so we decided, okay, well, we're going to go out on the front porch of the cabin. So we got out on the front porch of the cabin, and off to our right, probably 150, 200 yards, you hear this real deep "ooh, ooh," and I'm like, you ain't a damn owl, dude,
Yeah, I don't know who you're fooling, but it ain't me.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was where I started to feel. I knew I was in a place. One of the places where I put peanut butter out, I call it the highway because you go back 300-400 yards, and then there's a valley, and they tear that place up.
Mm-hmm.
Every other week you go out there, but there's so much deadfall you can't get any good prints. But the impressions are everywhere from 15, 17, and 23. And they are all over the frickin' place.
Yep.
And you can follow them 50 yards, 100 yards through the leaves, and then up to there's a piece of old I don't know if it's sewer pipe or what it is, but it's concrete. It's heavy. I can't move it. And yet that pipe will get picked up, carried uphill, 100 yards and set back down.
Hmm.
In a wooded forest where there's no way to get a piece of heavy equipment.
Right.
And then it'll get moved down someplace else. So that was one of my gifting areas for a long time. It was like the last time I gifted there was I put wasn't peanut butter. There was a goldfish bowl laying out there. So I picked up the goldfish bowl. I put a blue crystal in the goldfish bowl and then stuffed an empty jar of peanut butter. I had one of the small jars with me and stuffed that into the fish bowl and then put that in the pipe. And when I went back 2 months ago, the pipe had been moved over 100 yards. But where the pipe originally was, there's that fish bowl with the peanut butter jar in the bowl and no crystal.
Huh.
So, but anyway, what I got off track in that area. You just don't want to go back there at night.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you try to go back there at dusk, you just know you shouldn't be there. And I was running late, and I was like, oh crap, and I could feel something weird setting in. And all of a sudden, I hear like this really odd bird. I'd never heard it before. So I start recording with my phone, thinking I'm going to see, Bigfoot come walking out, imitating this 800-pound bird.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I get is growling about 20 yards over my right shoulder. And I am frozen. It's like, what the? I'm standing there, and it's and you can hear it over the bird. And finally, it gives a final huff, and that was when my feet decided to start working, and I was gone in a hurry. And I played that recording for a few people, and they identified the bird as a sand crane or sandhill crane. I'm like, okay, and then they hear the growl, and they're like, play that again. And this one woman hunts all over the world. She writes for the ammunition magazines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she's hunted those funky deer with the curly horns.
Yeah.
She's got horns as tall as she is. So she's been all over the place. And she's like, play it again. Play it. Play it again. Play it again. I have been all over the world in all kinds of woods for weeks and months at a time, and I have never heard anything like that.
Oh, wow.
So, and then I'll play it for friends, just showing them what the evidence I'm catching, and they're like, "You are a freaking Looney Tune to be out there knowing that's what." Yeah, well, just think about it. If they really wanted to get me, they had every opportunity. I'd never see it coming.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about, Scott Carpenter was well known for having a GoPro on the back of his backpack, picking up footage behind him as he's walking. Have you ever thought about doing that?
I have. Money is the big thing.
Oh yeah, trust me, I know.
Because I heard something walking behind me. Every time I turned around, I could not see it, and then it had me do a phone selfie style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I took 10 of them, and in one of them you can see one standing, trying to stand sideways behind the tree with the shoulder and head, half turned, looking at me. And when we went back to the tree, it was 7 foot plus that was standing there, and it's like, that's what baffles me the most. I mean, I know it's not paranormal or anything, but that's something somewhere between 700 and 1,000 pounds can move so quietly.
Yeah, they are the ninjas of the forest, as everybody likes to call them.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing because it's like, I mean, to me, it's almost fun to the point of, it's always, for me, it's actually peaceful and restful to go out looking for, as my mom used to say, the imaginary monkeys.
Yeah.
you know, and we took her out, and it was funny because I took her out after showing everything, and we found a decent print that was 17, you know, one of the normal ones out there. And she's like, what do you mean? You know, I said, you know how many people go their whole lives without even finding this? They just believe in the fact that they're real, but they never find anything. And we got a pretty decent, you know, it had a great heel outside of the foot and then inside 3 toes. You know,
Right.
it wasn't picture perfect, but it was nice. And she was, yeah, but now I want to hear one. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm just going to feed them peanuts and they're going to perform on command like the organ grinder monkeys. Okay, mom. You know?
Right.
But it's funny because she now she's retired and she started going to Texas and does campground hosting.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started talking, you know, getting to know him down there, she said, yeah, my son hunts Bigfoot up in, you know, Michigan. And they're like, oh, does he? And they started telling her all these stories about their experiences. And she texted me and she goes, you are not going to believe this. She says, they don't talk about them like if they're real. The rangers in the park say, yes, they're real. And it's just going to be a matter of time till you see one in the park.
Right.
And she goes, so not only do I got to worry about snakes and spiders, but now I got to worry about effing Bigfoot because of you. Hey, I didn't put them in Texas. You know, that's not my fault.
That's hilarious. So I got to ask you, as we start to wrap this up, I've got 2 big questions for you. One is the question that Wes Germer asks everybody on Sasquatch Chronicles. So what do you think Bigfoot is?
Oh, I knew that one was coming. You know, I never have a good answer for this. I used to be just strictly Gigantopithecus. That was the end of it. But now I'm more flesh and blood for sure, with special abilities, we'll say, I guess. I believe in the mind speak, you know, and being able to change their vibration. So maybe that's why some of the pictures are blurry or something. But yeah, flesh and blood with certain abilities.
It's a great answer. I'd have to agree with you. I know I started out years ago, way back in the '80s, when I was still in school, really interested in this. You know, you and I probably followed a very similar path. I'm a Gen Xer too. So yeah, I was one of those who was, yeah, I think it's a gorilla or something like that. And then the more I got into it, the more my thoughts on that changed, and the more I got into folklore and, you know, looking at things like where they talked about trolls and other things, my thoughts even changed more. But uh I see exactly what you're saying and where you're coming from, and I think you're probably on the right track. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I do. I mean, I do. I think they're a type of unknown people, I guess you would say.
Yep, that's exactly where I'm at. I didn't want to say that, but yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I think that's why whenever we turn in hair samples and fecal samples and everything else, that it comes back human, and they want to say, well, you know, it was contaminated by such and such. I don't think it was contaminated. I think they are human. I think they're human, but they're human plus, you know, something where we should be, but we've left all of that behind to be this for some reason. You know?
Yeah, I think they were a step above the Neanderthals, which is why they were smart enough as we developed tools to figure out that, you know, those little hairless ones, if one disappears, they're going to come back with a bunch of their friends and then they're just going to wipe us out.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is that we travel in big numbers. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't play nice with others.
No,
you know?
no, we're well known historically for not playing. We don't even play nice with ourselves, much less.
That's what I mean. It's like, look what we do to each other. So imagine what, and they've seen it.
Right.
You know, if they were the Native Americans, look what, as we inhabited the U.S., I guess we'll say, to try to keep it safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they saw all that. all of them went along with.
Yep. I think that Native American link, I think that's kind of why they build teepee structures and some of the other things that they do. I think they've learned that. I think that's something that they passed down generationally from the Sasquatch that were around whenever the Native Americans were actually building teepees, when they were leaning the poles together and everything, and they figured that out. They could do it. So why not?
Yeah, and my question was, kind of the chicken and the egg. Who's to say the Native Americans didn't learn it from them?
That's absolutely true. That could have gone the other way around. One other question I have for you before we kind of finish this up. So you're in Michigan and you're out in the woods and you're looking for Bigfoot. Now, you and I both hang around with Kenny Thibodeau. So what interactions, if any, or sightings or whatever have you possibly had with Dogman while you're out there?
I've never had a personal Dogman experience out there. My family had one in Newaygo, which is about 2 hours south of me, right at the edge of Manistee National Forest. So, it kind of made sense in 1964. And what that experience was my grandma, grandpa, and holy smokes, 7 kids. Grandpa was World War II veteran. And one night while they were having dinner in kind of like it was just a single story house. There were, I think, 2 bedrooms on one and a bedroom on the other. And they were having dinner. It was a foggy night out. And all of a sudden their German Shepherd started barking. And then they hear the dog yipe. And then the dog literally got tossed through the picture window with his chain wrapped around his neck.
Jeez.
And everybody freaks out. My grandpa pushes the bookcase in front of the window to cover the hole. And then he takes his firearm and he had one of those, look like car battery flashlights.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He had one of those and took 3 of the kids up. All of them had firearms, and it was foggy. They couldn't see, so he didn't want to get ambushed by whatever was, walking around. So they climbed up on the roof with the lights, and they were sitting up there, and they could hear something walking and growling. And this goes on for a little while. And at one point, there's a break in the fog where my grandpa says that he saw something that was walking on 2 legs, had a big, huge mane, was black, and the head of a wolf. And before he could take a safe shot, the fog, it disappeared in the fog. They heard it walk around a while more. And before morning, it just went away.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, so that's the only Dogman. I've heard of other encounters up here in Benzie, but not very many. Everything's in the National Forest, or Manistee National Forest, pardon me. Since hanging around with Kenny, I've been opening my ears a little more to the Dogman thing. What's kind of funny is the notorious Gable film.
Yeah.
I was training Jack O'Malley at the time, and he was Steve Cook's partner at WTCM. The guy who made the song The Legend.
Right.
And so when Monster Quest came to town, Jack's like, hey, got some good stuff coming. And I'm like, really? He says, and he made mention of the film. And I said, oh, that's cool. He said, no, you gotta watch. There's more to it. So it was one of those things where I knew ahead of time that there was more to that film than what people were saying before it came out. So, It doesn't stop me from believing in Dogman because I've heard so many reports. I've heard some crazy stuff come out of Manistee National Forest where uh, they actually close. There's all kinds of I don't know how many acres it is, but there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
and different trails you can go on and stuff. And one of the trails that my friend um, liked to go down, they grabbed their ATV and they were going down, and at a certain point, they saw the DNR and they were putting up a huge fence across it, closing the trail off. And they're like, "What's going on? Why is this going on?" And they said it was due to aggressive animal activity.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Well, was it a bear? Was it a mountain lion? What was it?" And they said it was aggressive animal activity.
Hmm.
It's still closed. The rumor was that there was a dog man back there harassing some people, and so they shut it down to deal with it.
Yeah. Wow.
So luckily, I mean, I know everybody, when you hear about a dog man report, that means, most of the people got out, but you just don't hear that many nice ones about dog man. So I
Right.
really no desire to look for it, hear about it very much other than on the radio or on the computer. No, I'm sorry. I
Exactly.
definitely have no desire to go look for it.
Yeah, I'm one of those goopy people who does. So,
Yeah, and in October I'm going to my first actual Bigfoot retreat camp out per se in Salt Fork. So it's like everybody's there's like, well, it's gonna be 50-50, bud. I'm like, crap.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
run
I've,
from it. I don't want to, I
I've,
they're like, well, you can go to LBL. No, I'm not going to LBL.
yeah, yeah. I've talked to people that have been in Salt Fork, and they've talked about both being in there. So yeah.
Yep. Well, I'm going with the hope of encountering some Squatch. I am not hoping to encounter anything I need to give dog treats to.
Well, definitely be careful. Hey, so where can people find Brian Barber at if they're trying to locate you on YouTube or wherever?
Easiest way and most consistent way, because I am unfortunately very inconsistent and unorganized, but the best way is to hit me up on Facebook under Brian Barber, excuse me, or find me on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on Bigfoot Outlaw Network and Bigfoot's Barbershop on Friday nights on YouTube at 9 o'clock.
All right.
Also, Midnight Lycanthropy. Whenever Kenny puts the videos out, we record twice a week, so
Mm-hmm.
they can find me there. But if they just want to hear my output on it, uh, Bigfoot's Barbershop Friday nights at 9 p.m. And I did just start a Rumble, Bigfoot Barbershop, no S. So
Fantastic.
we'll put some unfiltered stuff on there. It'll be a little more entertaining.
Cool. Yeah, I hang around on Rumble too. I do know that you are also on Camp Nightmare Fuel, which is one of Kenny's shows too. Yeah, and you and I have done one show together so far, and we're going to do more with Kenny. So yeah, we're gonna see more of you, and if anything else new pops up, I definitely want to have you back on the show if that's all right with you.
Absolutely, because I don't do this to try to be a personality. I try to do this to share with people who are like-minded and like I was, just interested in the topic and potentially what to do and what not to do when you're in the woods and maybe you have a chance encounter. So
Yep, yep. And definitely when I have you back, we're going to talk about those paranormal things that you had going on in your youth. So that'll be a lot of fun too.
yeah, and actually Wednesday night at 9 o'clock on Bigfoot Outlaw Network, I'm going to be on and we're going to talk about something that hasn't been talked about in a while, and that's the Bigfoot turd that I have in my freezer.
Ooh, yeah. We'll have to talk about that. Definitely. We'll have to check in and listen to that. So everybody, make sure you head over that way and you keep up with what's going on with Brian Barber because a lot of interesting stuff. All right, Brian, hang around just 1 minute. Let me close this thing off, and I'll talk to you in just a second.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you aboard. All right, everybody. That's the end of another episode. And remember, lock your doors, lock your windows, check in the closet, check under the bed, because monsters are real, and you never know when they're going to be back. Everybody have a great night, and thanks a ton for showing up for the show, and we'll have more coming up in the future. Good night.